My name is Michael Hagan, and today here at Carrollton Christian Fellowship, our daily Bible reading comes from 2 Chronicles. So we started a new book. So 2 Chronicles chapter 1 through chapter 4. And what we see here in 2 Chronicles chapter 1 is we see in the very beginning that Solomon goes to sacrifice at one of the high places. And what it says, and he goes to the high place that is there at Gibeon. And so Solomon went to the high place that had the tabernacle at it. So David had already brought the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, but the tabernacle remained at Gibeon. And so Solomon went to the place where the tabernacle was. And so with this, we need to look at what it was and what the tabernacle meant and what it represented. The Ark of the Covenant represented God's presence, represented the holiness of God, represented the everything in who God was. The tabernacle represents the meeting place of God, between God and man. And so where is it that Solomon, right off, where he goes and seeks the Lord? He goes to the place where he is allowed and where the people go and meet with the Lord. So he goes there. He goes and he meets with the Lord, and he goes to Gibeon to worship the Lord and to pray to the Lord. And he didn't only go by himself, but he went with a whole entourage. He went with all of his people. So he went with all of his peeps. He went with his bodyguards. He went with anyone and everyone, most likely and probably, who wanted to go and see what it is and what they were to do and how they were to go forward in following and seeking after the Lord. Some of them may have even sought after, okay, Lord, David's son, Solomon, who's not really equipped for this, how and what are you going to do with this? And so we see that Solomon goes and he even says, I'm not equipped for this. Lord, you need to give me some wisdom because I don't think I can do this. So we see that they go to the place of meeting, the tent of meeting, and they go and they worship and they sacrifice at the altar that was there. This altar was the same altar that was built and prepared in the wilderness that we see in Exodus chapter 36, verse 1 through 2. So this altar was more than 500 years old. So Solomon didn't look and say, well, you know what, this isn't a good enough altar. We need to go about doing different ways, new things, anything like that. But he saw and he recognized where God had always met Israel, where he had always been present with them and where he had always met them at with any of their requests. And so that's where Solomon went. Solomon went straight to where God meets us. This would be for us, for the church, the place in where Solomon went and met the Lord is the same place for us within the church where we go and meet Christ and where we meet the Lord. It's at the cross. And so the Old Testament, this coming to the tabernacle, was how we go to the cross. So we lay down ourselves, we lay down our pride, we lay down what we can do, and we seek the Lord and we seek his word. So we go before him in his faithfulness, where he has always been faithful to meet us. And so just as Solomon did that in seeking the Lord, we also continue to do that. And where is the place where the Lord has always been faithful to meet with us? It's always at the cross. It's always at the point of us never being able to say we can do something and by ourselves, but we need him in order to do everything. We need him in order to restore ourselves back with our loved ones, back with our friends, back with the community, whatever it may be. We always go and we go before the cross to seek wisdom from the Lord on how we are to move forward in relationship. And so we see that Solomon sacrifices. He makes a sacrifice here. And so this would have been the ceremonial beginning of Solomon's reign. So he begins this by seeking the Lord. And we see a grand 1,000 offerings that Solomon give. Most times, most commentators love to refer and to look at how this just showed the wealth of the nation, the wealth of Solomon. But really what Solomon was doing is Solomon was showing his heart. Solomon was showing his heart that he desired to show others how much God meant to him, that God meant so much that he was going to and willing to give everything in order to seek God's will and God's favor and God's direction in what Solomon was stepping out into and what Solomon had been called into. And so that's the same thing for us. Are we willing, as the church, are each of us individually willing to lay everything on the line in order to seek God's direction, God's will, and God's favor for whatever he has called us to or whatever that we believe he might be asking us to step out into? So do we go first to meet him, or do we just step off and do it and just go forward in doing it how we think is best? So I hope that we can take some great instruction, some great lessons from here with Solomon here in the beginning of his reign in 2 Chronicles chapter 1. And I hope that this can be a great encouragement to you as you go about your day. So take care, have a blessed one, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.